Everything blew up the moment Meido packed his bags, slammed the apartment door, and caught a one-way flight to Egypt, leaving Debbie frozen in the middle of her own shattered living room, surrounded by silence and enough red flags to fill an entire airport hangar. When the news broke, nobody could believe it. Not Debbie, not her friends, not the nosy neighbors who'd turned her love life into primetime entertainment for 6 seasons straight. Cameras caught her walking alone through the empty house, clutching her phone, face streaked with mascara and disbelief. Was this how a fairy tale ends? Or did we all just miss the plot twist hiding underneath every explosive argument and desperate Instagram post? Before you think this is another messy 90-day breakup, hold up. This saga isn't about a bad boyfriend or a couple who never stood a chance. This is about obsession, ambition, mind games, and a 6-year fantasy that burned through family, dignity, and even the TLC production staff's patience. How did Debbie go from giddy wedding day hope to a full-on emotional collapse while the world watched? And why did Meido stop pretending, throw his clothes in a bag, and ghost the Hollywood dream so fast that he left his acting headshots behind with the trash? It didn't happen by accident. This blow-up started long before the airport drama, bubbling under the surface of every red carpet selfie, every screaming match edited for cable, every desperate DM and private "I love you" posted for the haters. Here's the first twist. Nobody was prepared for what really went down. When Debbie and Meido tied the knot quietly, in secret, while the whole world was busy mocking their last on-screen meltdown, they thought nobody would find out. Fans thought the cameras caught everything, but something slipped past even the most dedicated reality TV sleuths. The fights got so brutal, the producers had to put down their gear and step between them. That's not reality TV. That's a 5-alarm fire with legal paperwork smoldering in the background. If you think you know the true story, wait until you see the real receipts. Some nights, all you want is popcorn and a cringe fest. Other nights, you get viral humiliation, broken promises, courthouse secrets, and the kind of public fallout that makes Twitter implode. So how did a 6-year romance, built on emoji hearts and late-night video calls, end up as the biggest train wreck of the season? And which bombshell are you going to remember? The public breakdown, the secret marriage, or the moment everyone realized that even fairy tales can turn toxic fast? Stick around, because nothing on this show ever ends the way anyone expects. Not so long ago, if you scrolled through Debbie's socials or tuned in on Sunday nights, you'd see the classic 90-day picture. Debbie, mid-50s, beaming from a porch swing in Louisiana. Meido, nearly a decade and a half younger, posing like he'd stepped out of an Egyptian cinema ad, rocking turtlenecks even in the New Orleans humidity. After all, this romance started in the DMs, Debbie on vacation, eyes wide with wanderlust, Meido dazzling her in the sun-drenched streets, and boom, love at first WhatsApp ping. Who hasn't gotten caught up in a little internet fantasy? The emoji hearts, the calls that stretch way past midnight, the shared playlists. It's 2026. Everybody wants a little taste of what if. Fans love to joke that Debbie was chasing her own Eat, Pray, Love experience, and Meido? He was halfway to Eat, Pray, Get Me to Hollywood. The chemistry was undeniable, and the gossip was even juicier. How often do you see a Southern grandma risk it all for a man whose big dream is to become the next big face in American cinema? Age gap relationships on TLC always light up the group chats, but this one? It was a meme before they'd finished their visas. Every season needs its wild card, a couple that keeps you shouting at the screen and texting your friends, are they for real? Admit it, you watched their first meeting and thought, this is about to be a hot mess. But every great mess needs a twist. Debbie and Meido played their roles almost too well. To the outsiders, it was a story as old as reality TV. Older American woman falls for exotic, charming foreigner, and everyone places bets on whether love or the green card will go the distance. The show cut between sweet moments, him carrying her bags across cobblestone streets, to all-out war in the kitchen over burnt omelets and language barriers. Debbie's friends were alarmed, her grown kids raised eyebrows, but she leaned right in, defending her man at every family meal and all over Facebook. Fans couldn't get enough. Every tweet, every recap, made their arguments sound bigger, messier, more unreal. What TLC's cameras didn't catch, Twitter filled in with wild guesses and jokes sharper than any confessional. As the season built towards that final episode, the tension jumped off the screen. You could see the cracks in every over-edited dinner. Producers milked those tearful interviews and bedroom door slams for all they were worth. Debbie would confess, voice shaking, about how no one took her seriously, while Meido glared at the ceiling like he had a one-way plane ticket on hold. By the finale, that long-distance promise from 6 years ago looked thin. The couple's fights were no longer snarky. They hurt to watch. Michelle from down the street might post on Facebook, "Girl, wake up," but in Debbie's world, she was still holding out hope. Are you ever rooting for a couple knowing there's no way it ends well? You want to believe, but every time you see Meido roll his eyes at another crawfish boil, it's clear love isn't supposed to feel like walking on broken glass for 6 months straight. Then came the night it all changed. After a haunted house Halloween party, things hit a level nobody saw coming. In the car, tensions exploded. The shouting was so fierce, so raw, that even the most jaded producer dropped their script notes. This wasn't TV drama, this was real fear, the kind that makes people move for the doors. The public didn't know it yet, but from that moment, the fantasy shattered. The show cut to black, viewers left on edge, but behind the scenes, even TLC staff were about to learn that sometimes, the messiest moments never make it to air. The minute the cameras stopped rolling that night, the real story started to move fast. Debbie, still dressed as a bewildered fairy godmother from the Halloween party, kept replaying everything on loop. What went wrong, and when did she lose control? Some wounds cut deep, and this one felt public in a way she'd never imagined. Hours earlier, she hoped the costumes and decorations might heal some of their distance, but every smile looked forced. Meido barely spoke to her friends, delivered one-word answers, and the tension was thicker than Louisiana humidity in August. Every old friend saw it. The polite ones hit it with a cheery refill. The blunt ones asked if Meido even liked crawfish, or liked people at all. On the drive home, all bets were off. The fight started like so many before, with a grumbled comment, a sideways glance, and quickly spun out of control. Ugly words flew out, accusations with nowhere to land. He criticized the town, her friends, even the music she played in the car. It felt petty, but came laced with venom. Debbie couldn't take another night of scrutiny, feeling small under her own roof, while Meido made it clear he wanted out of every moment that didn't get him closer to a real Hollywood audition. The argument wasn't about the party anymore. It was about 6 years of missed signals, of one person writing a love story while the other memorized audition lines. Is there anything more humiliating than handing your heart to someone who treats it as a prop for their own big scene? No segment of the show prepared anyone for this, especially not the woman who once saw herself as the leading lady in a second-chance romance. Meido never understood Debbie's world, the inside jokes, her closest girlfriends who popped by unannounced, her Friday night rituals, her back porch talks about lost loves and hard-won lessons. He craved flashing lights, new fans, the endless buzz of something bigger than New Orleans could ever provide. Debbie, in a way, saw his hunger early, but she chose not to see the danger in it. How do you go all in on a life with someone whose gaze is always searching for the exit? He'd wake up dreaming about Los Angeles, then drop hints all day about moving, networking, making it. Debbie brushed it off as ambition at first, even supported his expensive dreams, paid for acting headshots, let the rent slide, and made excuses to friends when he skipped job interviews for another self-tape. By the holidays, cracks turned into chasms. Friends started asking hard questions. Even Debbie's own sister told her she was losing herself. Old routines, old laughs, shrinking until she barely recognized the woman in family photos. Online, fans debated everything. Was Meido here for love, for money, for a shot at green card fame? One viral Reddit thread even tracked how many times he talked about acting compared to declaring his feelings for Debbie. The numbers didn't look good. Nobody saw the truth clearer than Debbie, even though she refused to say it out loud. She was funding his dream, praying he'd see her, clinging to the fairy tale princess story she'd written in her head. There's something gutting about watching a woman try to save a relationship by losing herself. The fights turned mean. Debbie pleaded for respect, for a little gratitude, for something other than that dent in the sofa where Meido spent his afternoons doom-scrolling through casting calls and flirting with the idea of being discovered at the local grocery store. When she suggested a real job, he laughed. When she asked about paying the phone bill, he rolled his eyes. Tension grew until every conversation was a landmine. In public, she defended him tirelessly, looking her neighbors in the eyes and insisting he needed time to adjust. Privately, she cried herself to sleep, wondering how long she could pretend things were fine. If you've ever rooted for someone to find happiness and watched them run straight for heartbreak, you know this brand of pain. There are nights when love feels like a punchline, and Debbie was the joke. Meido's dismissiveness grew cold. A fight over dinner became a shouting match over respect, ended with slammed doors and alarming silences. Some nights, Meido would vanish for hours, returning with a quick apology and another update about his next big break. The hope faded in her eyes, replaced by something like resignation. When Debbie's friends dropped by, the air was always tense, each visit another awkward theater piece. The lines between real and performed affection blurred, but no one knew where the acting ended. All this chaos spilled online. Fans split into camps. Team Protect Debbie and Team Meido is misunderstood. Posts flooded Debbie's inbox. Some begged her to see the truth. Others attacked her for refusing to leave. She'd reply to critics, sometimes late at night, defending Meido's intentions, revealing way more than any producer could script. There's a special kind of heartbreak when you have to fight not only your partner's disinterest, but the world's skepticism in public. People accused Debbie of wanting too much, of ignoring red flags, but she replied with hope, reminding them love was tougher than the internet's cynicism. Nothing compared to the humiliation of being questioned everywhere she went. Even grocery store runs turned into walking a gauntlet of sympathetic looks and whispers behind shelves. Her face, smooth before, now pinched with new worry lines, was recognized around her small town. At church, kids asked where Meido had gone. Debbie always answered with the same soft smile, never hinting that the only fairy tale left was the one she carried in her stories and dreams. Through all of it, Meido remained laser-focused. Acting was his ticket, and every rejection became more fuel for arguments. He resented Debbie's questions, hated the feeling of being managed, saw every sacrifice she made as yet another hurdle in the way of his destiny. The resentment turned mutual. They moved through the house like awkward roommates. Debbie found herself walking on eggshells, shrinking into corners, desperate to avoid the next confrontation but too scared to end things herself. When the Halloween argument exploded, witnesses said the shouting could be heard outside, loud enough that even the TLC crew dropped their cameras, stepping into frame to separate two people who had nothing left to say. Would you forgive someone after that kind of public disaster, or would you finally accept that it's time to walk away? That night changed everything. Some fans thought the story ended there, with broken glass and spilled tears. But the next secret was about to come out, quietly signed at a Louisiana courthouse, proving that nothing in this romance was ever as simple or open as it seemed. The cameras showed heartbreak, but behind closed doors, Debbie and Meido managed to surprise even the biggest reality TV detectives. Just when you thought the chaos couldn't get any messier, another twist waits right around the corner, leaving everyone wondering if closure is even possible when the biggest heartbreak is still locked away, hidden in plain sight. When news of the breakup leaked, it was like reality TV's version of a public trial. Every fan group, subreddit, and Facebook page turned into small-town courthouses, with thousands of wannabe jurors ready to give their verdicts. Screenshots of Debbie's tear-stained confessional hit Twitter by dawn. One meme had already gone viral before she finished her first apology tour online. The comments came in non-stop waves, some people desperately rooting for her to walk away, others throwing shade because they claimed they saw it coming weeks before the first curse word flew in that infamous car ride. People circled like sharks, gathering up the wreckage and turning every photo into another round of "she's blind" or "he's a scammer." Sympathy posts racked up the likes, but the sarcasm in replies hit even harder. Debbie took the brunt, and not just from strangers. Even ex-cast members chimed in, fishing for screen time or pushing their own tea. Every time Debbie posted something, defenders and critics went to war. She'd reply with paragraphs, trying to make her side known, painting a picture of Meido as misunderstood and herself as a fighter for her own happiness. Instagram comments stacked up faster than she could answer, most of them alternating between heartfelt encouragement and cold warnings that she should have seen it from day one. She replied with long explanations, trying to distance her story from every used for a green card stereotype, but the replies poured in faster than she could read them. It was almost impossible for her to find safe space anywhere. Even a grocery run with a friend was met with whispers. She couldn't do her weekly coffee date without someone mentioning the guy from TV and what he was up to now. People who'd never spoken to her in years showed up in her DMs, often starting with versions of "you deserve better." Some strangers, though, sent cruel messages, screenshots of audition tapes Meido had posted, or clips of old episodes with timestamps showing every time he described his Hollywood ambitions instead of his feelings for Debbie. For every person telling her to heal, 3 more posted laughing emojis under clips of her breakdown. The division was everywhere. In fan circles, some people openly mocked the relationship, saying it was doomed from the first episode. Others, often those who'd been through their own long-distance scars, offered real empathy, saying sometimes hope is hard to kill. People made jokes about age gaps, about cultural disconnects, even about Debbie's cats. Reddit threads ballooned overnight, keeping detailed tallies. How many times did Meido mention LA? How many job offers did he turn down? Every moment he seemed distant while Debbie looked hopeful. The green card theory became a hammer people used to pound at any immigrant story on the show, not just this one. Nearly every comment cycle spiraled into tired debates about who is scamming whom. But public records, fan sleuthing, and a few surprise interviews made it obvious things weren't so simple. Debbie wasn't naive. She was determined, even to the point of self-destruction. She never let her guard fully down, but she never wanted to be someone's stepping stone either. Some audience members said, in all caps, that anyone could see Meido's ambition went beyond Louisiana, but others pointed out that if chasing dreams made you a scammer, half the town would be accused. Debbie's friends quietly admitted that sometimes, the dream you want most blinds you to the one you actually have. Real receipts began popping up. Social media timelines were dissected like crime scenes. Fans zoomed in on family photos, highlighted the lack of holiday posts together, and found weird gaps in Debbie's updates compared to the snarkier, more scattered posts from Meido. Some eagle-eyed viewers uncovered courthouse records, names, dates, and signatures, confirming that long before the final public meltdown, Debbie and Meido had gotten legally married in secret. No flowers, no cake, just a few lines on a Louisiana form. While millions watched their drama unfold, the real paperwork had already been filed away. This bombshell fueled even more speculation. Fans demanded to know why someone would keep a marriage secret if all was well. Some said it was for visa insurance. Others figured Debbie was protecting herself, trying to keep at least one thing away from TV cameras and public creepiness. Theories grew wilder by the hour, but the misery in Debbie's eyes during her next IG Live told another story. She was stuck defending a decision she no longer believed in, and now she had to prove, online and to herself, that she wasn't the only one getting fooled by hope. Even as receipts rolled in and group chats heated up, Debbie doubled down. She told anyone who'd listen that love was complicated, that sometimes what you see on screen isn't what goes on in real life. She called out the worst trolls, asking them if they'd ever risked their hearts. She responded to legitimate questions, too. Why didn't she leave sooner? Why keep fighting when the odds were that ugly? Her answer was always the same. You hold on until there's nothing left to save. She tried to defend Meido's motives, sometimes blaming editing, sometimes leaning on the idea that everyone wants a better life and maybe she was that better life for him, even if just for a while. Meido's defenders fired back, saying he'd always been honest about his dreams, that the cameras exaggerated every rough patch. Maybe he was chasing something out of reach, But wasn't Debbie chasing a fantasy too, one she painted over every red flag with another excuse? Some compared their mess to older storylines on the show, arguing that love always looks desperate when it's unraveling in public. Debbie posted throwbacks and cryptic captions, still tagging Meido even as the block lists on both their phones grew. But the tipping point wasn't found online. It happened behind the scenes, in the days after the public explosion and slightly before the world knew about the secret wedding. Debbie kept going on camera, showing up at every required interview, insisting things could be fixed. Producers pushed her for the real story, smelling a bigger twist. She bit her tongue, still backing Meido, refusing to admit to betrayal. Her friends called multiple times a day, checking in, begging her to come out or just take off for a weekend alone. But she stayed locked in defense mode, replaying every old message and every new insult, still refusing to make herself the victim. The self-defense started to look less like strength and more like stubborn hope. The more Debbie fought to keep her story alive, the more sympathy curdled. People who had once defended her began to ask if she was hurting herself on purpose, holding on out of pride or fear instead of real love. In forums and private messages, concern turned to frustration. A wave of compassion fatigue swept over even her most loyal supporters. Some compared watching Debbie's journey to watching someone slowly drown and refusing the life raft, arms full of lost dreams and clipped Instagram comments. The turning point was quiet, nothing like the show's screaming matches or viral meltdowns. Debbie stopped responding to the worst comments, closed herself off, and disappeared for a week. Even her biggest defender had to admit, you can't pull someone to safety if they'd rather defend the person steering both of you into the rapids. No matter how much truth came out, no matter how many secrets surfaced in those public documents, Debbie's support for Meido had reached a breaking point. At this stage, it stopped being about proving the world wrong. It started looking like she was protecting her last ounce of hope, even when the dream had already gone cold. Quietly, painfully, everyone realized some heartbreaks refused to be solved by receipts, sympathy, or any number of comment-section warriors. Sometimes the story doesn't close with answers. It just waits, silent, for someone to admit it's over. Suitcases stacked by the door, a taxi idling in the sticky Louisiana dawn, and Meido moving around the apartment with a look of total finality. Debbie stood near the hallway, numb, clutching the reality that this is where it ends, not with a grand speech, but with a man zipping up his bags and not even glancing back at her. No last-ditch apologies. No Hollywood love story twist. Only the electric quiet of being left with the echo of your own choices. He took his last look at the room she'd tried so hard to turn into a home, then walked away, leaving his American dream and Debbie's trust cooling behind him like yesterday's coffee. Her phone vibrated nonstop with group chat notifications and thinking of you texts from people who never knew what it meant to give up 6 years for someone who saw you as a stepping stone. For a while, she stared at his old headshots, the ones promising he'd be the next big thing, wondering how the script got lost. When did ambition stop being charming and start cutting right through the heart? Friends dropped by, half expecting to find plates shattered, but instead found Debbie sitting at the kitchen table, quiet and stripped of all the stories she used to tell about what their life would be. She wasn't dramatic. She was hollowed out, startled by her own hopefulness and the silence that grew bigger every hour he stayed gone. People say heartbreak feels like a crash, but sometimes it's more like an empty parking lot, slowly filling with memories that nobody wants to sort through. She scrolled through old texts, pictures from happier days, searching for a clue, as if somewhere in their thread she could pinpoint the exact second things snapped. Was it when she offered to pay for his first round of headshots, or the moment their friends stopped asking if they could make it work and just exchanged looks behind her back? Publicly, she held it together much better than she did off camera, but people watching at home only saw pieces. A woman picking up groceries, plastering on a smile for nosy neighbors, more determined than ever to prove she was okay, even when everyone else knew she was living in the shadow of a heartbreak that wouldn't let go. Secrets never stay buried, especially when everyone has the receipts, but the real shame isn't loving someone too hard. It's pretending you don't care when all you want is for someone to fight for you back. What haunts Debbie is the feeling of being in an audition, over and over, with someone who only wanted the audience, never her partnership. Every denial fueled her stubbornness. Every rejection made her double down for a relationship running on thin air. The pity hurt most. Even people on the street who whispered, "You were too good for him," made her want to scream. Who decides what you're worth after your private breakdown gets edited into a viral moment? The ones telling her to move on never sat through meetings with producers who sized her heartbreak for episode order. The friends advising her to bin his stuff didn't feel how heavy the empty apartment could get at 3 in the morning. Everyone thinks they know what they'd do in your place. Walk away, change the locks, dye your hair, post some self-care quotes on Instagram, but no one really knows until it's your name trending for all the wrong reasons, and your inbox fills up with advice from strangers who've only seen the highlight reel. What did all this teach anyone about love, or ambition, or the price you pay for starring in your own train wreck? Sometimes saying, "I love you," becomes a battle cry. Sometimes chasing a big dream leaves a trail of heartbreak all the way back to your front step. And sometimes, two people hurt each other not because they're bad, but because neither one was willing to admit the story was broken until every last page was burned. It's easy to make jokes about age gaps or reality TV disasters, but the real tragedy is how long hope survives after respect dies. Even TLC can't script that kind of loyalty. What looked like naivety on camera was really the desperate belief that anyone can learn to love you, even when all the signs say run. How far would you go to keep a fantasy alive? Would you forgive a dozen humiliations, keep making excuses, cling to the dream even as it falls apart right in front of you? Or does there come a point where you have to stop defending the person breaking your heart and start defending yourself? Debbie's decision in the end wasn't about Meido, or fame, or haters on social media. It was about facing the hardest truth. Sometimes loving someone harder doesn't make them stay. Sometimes it just makes you forget who you are. That is the lesson hidden in plain sight through all the memes, hashtags, and armchair therapy. If you look past the tabloid headlines, the receipts, and the snark, the pain is simple. Loving the wrong person out loud, in public, with no place left to hide. Picking up the pieces isn't glamorous, but it is real, and it's what mostly happens away from cameras after the story goes viral. As for the secrets left behind, let's just say, no matter how much closure you think you got, there is always more coming on this show. The fallout doesn't end when the plane leaves the tarmac or the comment section quiets down for a night. In the next episode, someone unexpected decides they're finally done being polite, and trust me, the meltdown coming will make Debbie's heartbreak look like a dress rehearsal. You think this was wild? You haven't seen anything until the next couple steps up to the plate, with even bigger secrets and even more chaos on the line. Stay tuned. Your popcorn isn't safe yet.